It's something that's talked about a lot. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm starting to read about it all the time in the press and in sort of current literature. So we've got a really great panel here today. First of all, we've got Kyle, and Kyle is going to talk to us about the principles around soil health and gut health. Sorry, could somebody put the slide on? Just this, yeah, and the next one, please. Yeah. So Kyle is going to talk about the kind of principles around it, and then we're going to hear from Lisa. Lisa's going to inform us about the new research that's taking place in this area. Then we've got Brid, who is a really interesting combination in that she's a chef and a farmer, which I think is fantastic. But she's going to talk to us about the flavour implications. That's one thing I don't think we ever talk about enough about is flavour. And finally, Claire, who is going to explain more to us in terms of the key role that gut health is in terms of the aspects of our own health as individuals. So we've got a great panel, so I'm going to pass over here to Kyle to get started and tell us a bit about the principles of soil and gut health.
All right. Thank you very much. So, yep. So I found this picture on the internet, and I thought it was really, really fascinating to show soil health is the foundation of nutrition, whether you're a microbe, whether you're bacteria, fungi, protozoa, an earthworm, a plant, an animal, or us. Well, we are animals, but if you think about it, all of those atoms, those nutrients, they don't change. It's the same nutrient along the path. It's just, can we cycle them and get them from the soil? So let's say something like phosphorus or potassium that is so important to health. Can it get out of the rock, into a microbe, into the plant, into the cow's mouth, into our mouth? And that's really what health is all about. And I believe that the world we see around us, the living organisms, are the winners of this evolutionary race. And so what that means is health is the default setting for every organism you see. So given the right amount of nutrients at the right time and the right content, you're going to have health in an individual and an organism. And it's actually fascinating when you look at the similarities that those atoms, the similarity of the function in all of the organisms, including us. So we're not actually as special as we might think. So let's take zinc, for example. Zinc is absolutely crucial for seed development, and that's just reproductive system of plants. What is zinc really important in the human for? Reproduction. So if we can cycle these nutrients, get them from the soil all the way up to us, we're going to be more healthy. Next slide, please. So not only is it about getting the right nutrients at the right time, it's about having more diversity of life. That richness and abundance of life creates health in the soil and eventually in our guts. So this was a recent research paper that looked at restoration of grassland. So year one, you can see on the bottom, there's the blue bacteria and the red fungi. After 30 years, they retested it and the microbial communities had boomed, right? And so it wasn't just a matter of getting rid of the bad ones and replacing them with the good ones. Actually, what they found was the bad, which really there is no bad and good in nature, everything rose. So the more richness and diversity we had, the healthier the system was. So that's an absolutely fascinating example of we need diversity in the soil to have health. So what they found was the relative abundances of actinobacteria, proteobacteria, and bacteroidetes increased. Why is that important? Well, the dominant gut microbial phyla are Firmicutes, Bacteroidetes, Actinobacteria, Proteobacteria, Fusobacteria. So it's the same bacteria in the soil, in those communities, that end up in our gut. So what we do to the soil affects us as well. Last slide, please. And so we teach 6 principles of soil health. 1, know your context. So if you're a farmer or a gardener or a yardener, know your context and what your precipitation, your all those context clues are key to implementing practices that will regenerate soil health. The second is do not disturb. So minimally disturbing that soil so we can keep those bacterial fungal communities So what they end up doing is they build that structure that they thrive in. And so when we come in with steel and chemicals, we wreck it back down to square one, so they have to spend energy rebuilding it rather than doing things that are healthy. The third is cover and build surface armor. The fourth is diversity, as we talked about. The fifth is having living roots in the soil as long as possible. So those microbes in the soil, they need to be fed just like any organism. And the best way to do that is with living roots. They pump that solar energy down into the soil where they can use it, those microbes, and all the way up to us can use that energy. And last is reintegrating animals back on the land. No landscape on the planet developed without the help of animals. So we could really be doing the soil a favor by properly managing and bringing those animals back.
Thank you very much. That's really interesting. I like that. Hadn't heard that term before.
What's that?
A yard?
A yardner.
A yardner? Okay. Hope we need more yardners. Okay, Lisa, would you tell us a bit about the kind of new research in this area? What's happening?
Yeah, I can. So just to introduce myself, I'm Lisa Black and I'm head of the Agronomy and Plant Science branch at AFBI, covering Crossnacreevy and Loughgall sites. And what I want to do, if you move on to the next slide, please, is just talk about the agronomy and plant science challenges that we are currently facing and how, through addressing those, we'll be improving soil health and ultimately gut health. So I'm going to talk a little bit about plant varieties and species, agronomic inputs, and plant-soil interactions. Next slide, please. So variety testing is quite a niche subject, and all agricultural crops have to go through variety testing before they can be marketed. So every seed you grow, whether that's grass or wheat or whatever, has to go through statutory testing, and it plays a really critical role in creating sustainable and resilient systems. And it continually improves the yield and performance of crops and capitalises on best genetics available. And what I want to focus on very briefly is a project we have in AFBI called Innovar, which is really looking at changing variety systems, variety testing systems, because it's only through that we can impact breeding effort. And if we change those variety testing systems, we can push for varieties and crops that require fewer inputs. We can look for traits of resilience and sustainability. So that is one of our key objectives, and actually we've gone quite a bit of the way towards that across Europe by looking at developing systems that require fewer inputs whilst maintaining productivity. That particular project is in wheat, but we're also looking at grass, so we're looking for identifying traits where the grass roots are more resilient to drought, and also going forward we'd like to move testing systems to have reduced nitrogen inputs. At the moment, breeding and testing uses huge amounts of inorganic nitrogen, but if we want to move towards sustainable cropping, we need to reduce those inputs. Okay, next slide, please. In terms of species, there's been a bit of talk about novel crops, and we are starting work in this area. I have a PhD looking at mallow as an agricultural crop, that first picture there. This will be used as a bioactives that can be used for pharmaceutical properties to go some way to replacing zinc oxide in pig guts. So it's like any food system. The fewer inputs we have, the fewer chemical inputs we have, the more healthy the food will be, the more healthy the plants will be, and soil, and ultimately human gut as well. Protein crops are really important. We are looking at reducing import of protein crops, and the reason that might impact gut microbiome is because we know the way that protein has been produced. So we've got better oversight of the safety of crop production, and also it leaves a legacy where we have additional nitrogen in the soil, so we're again reducing the need for inputs. And novel ways of cropping. Heritage varieties have received quite a lot of interest. There's been a really nice project between Ireland and Wales looking at oats, and 190 different varieties of oats have been looked at in terms of their nutritional profile, and there's vast differences in the profile nutritionally of varieties, and heritage oats really seem to have this, and that'll be true of other crops as well, but we need to make sure they are productive as well, so there's a real need to evaluate those. Co-cropping going forward, this is companion cropping. It's really potentially a good way to have more resilient food systems and produce potentially silage that is of better quality, so you have better quality food for animals and better health for humans. In terms of agronomic inputs, obviously we're a very intensive livestock sector here, and we use a lot of organic manures. We've done some work at substituting inorganic fertiliser with more novel products. Behind all this is the worry potentially that there's pathogens in slurries, for example, E. coli, Campylobacter, and there's a need to monitor their fate in the environment after they've been applied, and that would impact, again, soil health and ultimately human health. And what we have found in one particular trial is that pathogens in slurries, etc., do not persist in the environment in a viable form after ploughing and sowing. Moving on to soil health itself, so obviously you're all probably aware that it is a combination of chemistry, physics and biology. If you want to move to the next slide, thank you. And another thing we're focused on is how do we best measure soil health? The triangle diagram you see there on the right, I don't know if you can see it, but hopefully you can see that on the left is biology, on the right is chemistry, and on the bottom is physics. And you can see those grey circles indicate the research effort in measuring those different traits. And you can see there's a real focus on the chemistry. So what we really want to do is explore how do we measure biological health so we can compare management systems. And if we do that, we can look at the impact of species and variety on soil biology. There's evidence to show that different varieties will impact the soil. They'll leave a different legacy behind. And that's even more true for different species. Obviously, what you grow in the ground has impact not only on the biology but also on soil structure. That's very important. And also thinking about what state we leave in the soil after we've grown crops. Next slide, please. And this is my last slide. So really it's just to point out that actually plant health and soil health are very much linked with the One Health concept. If we have healthy plants, healthy fields with fewer inputs, then ultimately that will lead to a better health all round. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fascinating to hear about different varieties of oats having different nutritional profiles. I must say that was something that I think is really interesting. Okay. So over to the flavour implications of all of this, Brid, and your experience.
Right. Okay. Now, I didn't get my slides in time, so you've got a few nice photographs of some of the flowers and I suppose the plants on my farm. I've worked as a chef for a very long time. And one thing I found was that flavour of vegetables hasn't improved. It really hasn't, and I did want to find out why this was. And one of the main reasons is because of where they're grown. Even organic vegetables are being grown in depleted soils without diversity, and so that was a very, very important point, which I would like to address, I suppose, in the future. And the same with meat. I'm a beef farmer and aiming to have the most flavoursome beef. I'm a very new farmer, so I have to defer to all the experienced farmers here. But I have been I've gone through the system to learn the farming, and so I have things that I've learned I wouldn't necessarily always agree with. For example, single varieties of grass, or keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid is basically what they said. That it's easier to manage a single variety of grass for feeding your animals. I prefer to work on a bit of diversity. As we heard from Kyle, it's variety, diversity, and the more varieties of plants means the more variety of, the more species of microorganisms there are in the soil. And that will go the same with the more plants and the more varieties of plants you eat. the more variety or more species of microorganisms in your gut. So it works like that. So I think we have to go back to basics, really look at the soil. I think we have to increase the numbers of microorganisms in the soil, especially the fungi, and that should improve flavour. I also wanted to mention about the phytonutrients, which are plants are made up of the basic macronutrients, but then they have these other phytonutrients which are not at all included in nutritional labels, and they're completely neglected. We hear about them, when we're talking about healthy foods such as turmeric and that kind of thing, but they are in all foods, all plant foods, and they all have beneficial, they all have effects, not all of them beneficial, but very many of them have beneficial effects on animal health, and that is passed on, as Kyle mentioned as well, that is also passed on, maybe improved for us or changed for humans when they consume animal meat. So I think that's what would be, we need to get better variety for the animals to eat, more phytonutrients, and then we also have the health benefits, the further health benefits of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. These are all effects which these various plants would give, and they also help with livestock rearing. For example, the bird's foot trefoil is very high in tannins, so that will help with worm counts. We don't have to plant multi-species sward. There's a lot of it there if you have old pasture. There's a lot of it there which will come back if you given the right conditions. So I just wanted to mention as well about the Complete Herbal, which is a handbook that was written in 1952. Knowledge that has been there about all these phytonutrients and the benefits of all the plants. It's been known and it's been passed down. Another recent book called Nourishment, which by Fred Provenza, that was written in 2018, but now it's available in Audible, which is brilliant because it's a heavy-going book, and if you can listen to it in Audible, it will give you a huge insight into feeding animals and feeding humans. And then also recent research which has been taken by Dr. Stefan van Viet in Utah University and defining beef density. And that comes back to, I suppose, feeding beef on grass and how much more beneficial grass-fed is to grain-fed. So the point I would like to really make is that we have the opportunity. We have grass here. It grows. Yeah, if nothing else grows in this country, grass grows. And that is a huge, huge opportunity for producing the best beef in the world. And given a little bit of biodiversity in the grass, that'll improve flavour as well.
Yeah, I remember the first time an American asked me, was the beef grass-fed? And I was quite shocked. I tried to work out what you mean. Of course, it's grass-fed, but I understand now.
Yeah.
So, how all that comes together in relation to our health. I had a father-in-law who lived to 101 3/4, who ate porridge every morning, and was a vegetarian in the later years of his life. So clearly he was doing something right. He must have read those books. So over to you, Claire. Can you tell us a bit about how all this comes together in the human body?
So yes, if you just keep tapping there, maybe that didn't come up. There was a wee bit of on the presentation, perhaps that's missing. Anyway, what it does say, though, is there's basically our skin is 90% bacteria. So we need to be looking at how the relationship between our skin, our bodies, and relating that to our gut health and our soil and the exposure to the soil. So you can see there, that's it now, thank you very much. An interesting fact there is there are 300 times more bacteria in your gut than there are stars in the Milky Way. So whenever you really think about that, we really are walking microorganisms. So, yep, next slide, please. So there's different types of bacteria in our gut, and we have beneficial bacteria, we also have potentially pathogenic bacteria, there's also some pathogenic, and then we have those that are benign and cause no harm. Next, please. So there's certain functions that the role of the gut plays, and this is a very important role in immune system. Actually, 70 to 80% of our immune system is present in our gut. So all those microorganisms in our gut, we need to be really looking after them. It is needed for digestion of food, which we all know, but actually more importantly to me is the absorption of our nutrients. We could be eating very well, but we actually may not be absorbing our nutrients. So that's where I would come in then and talk to you on a one-to-one basis. But gut microbiome plays a big role in detoxification, getting rid of any toxins that have built up over time and eliminating those from our system. So what are the health effects of an altered gut microbiome? Well, an impaired immune function, as I'd said, 70 to 80% of our immune system's in our gut. So if our gut bacteria is imbalanced or it's been tampered and it's altered, that will have an impact. And that can present itself as allergies, autoimmune conditions, there's increased inflammation. And as we age, we actually lose some of our gut microbiome and it changes. And then also our ability to absorb certain nutrients plays a role there too. And there's also a very close relationship between our gut and our brain. I'm not sure if you've heard that our gut is our second brain. So that's very important. Everything to me, whenever I'm talking to clients and individuals, it's all about the gut. And that's where I would be starting. And I would always describe it as the foundations of a house, for example. Next, please. So there's a whole range, and this I'm sure is not all of them, of toxins that can play a big impact on basically tampering with and destroying the overall function of our gut bacteria. So I have in bold here some of them that are maybe more applicable for today. So things like pesticides, insecticides, solvents, heavy metals, they play a role in our gut health because, as we've talked about there previously, the impact on the presence of them in our soil, that's absorbed directly into our gut health too. So there's other ones there like water, plastics and certain air pollutants, air fresheners, technology, and a lot of things that we're probably more aware of now. There's a lot of exposure and talk about them, which is brilliant. So that's where we would be talking more about choosing natural, choosing to go organic where we can. Next, please. What is the presenting symptoms, perhaps, that we would then be looking at improving gut health? This is known as leaky gut. I don't know if any of you have heard of leaky gut or gut dysbiosis. And this can present itself in so many forms. We have adrenal fatigue, constipation, diarrhea, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, frequent colds, flus. So if you know somebody that's always cold, flu, we would be working on your gut health. Even skin health, anybody with eczema, acne, psoriasis, and also brain would say there about the gut-brain connection. There's a very big input into research now in that relationship, especially I suppose with children with autism and ADHD and the gut health too. Next, please. So where does this come into play with regards to soil health? Soil is one of our planet's largest living ecosystems, and it provides 95% of our food. We carry many of the same bacteria as soil on our skin. So our skin, whenever we actually expose, you've heard of maybe grounding with the soil and with earth, it actually reflects the microorganisms present on our skin are very, very similar to that in the soil. The amount of physical contact with the soil affects the diversity and therefore health of our gut microbiome. And our gut health is supported through a balanced, as we've talked about, a balanced diet, a nutritious diet, and variety is key. And I always say this as well, variety really is the spice of life in so many aspects. Next, please. Gut health plays a very big role. The plants and animals that grow on the soil need to be nourished, because if they're not nourished correctly, we're not going to be nourished correctly because that's our diet. Many nutritional deficiencies in our foods result from growing crops on degraded soils. There's a lot of research done on this, and it's really, really interesting. I've actually worked with Loughry College to look at the study in carrots, between shop-bought carrots, organic bought carrots, and there was a very good investigation and result showing a decline in magnesium and zinc in the soil, and therefore in the carrot itself. Now, as a nutritionist, I wouldn't be then saying you need to multivitamin, you need to take a multivitamin and avoid eating the carrot, because obviously the carrot's going to give us fibre. It's all about looking at the diet as a whole and thinking to yourself, right, if this is the results and we're not getting a really good nourished diet and the nutrients aren't coming through as well as we wanted to, then we need to look at perhaps topping up with a natural multivitamin or something like that too, and really looking at your diet as a whole. But food and drink produced by regenerative farmers will encourage sustainable agriculture, and if it's good for the earth beneath our feet, it's good for our body and mind too. And I think this is something similar to what Kyle had up. It's very, very good. It shows it, and it makes it very easy for you to understand basically the impact that the soil microbiome compared to a poor gut microbiome, and then a rich soil microbiome and a healthy gut microbiome, and how conventional food, fast processed, very little nutrients in it, has a poor impact on our gut, and therefore presents itself, thinking of all those symptoms again, and then the good health, exposing to sustainable agriculture practices, produces healthy food, low meat, rich in organic foods, pesticide free, microbiome rich, which to me is the big take home message there. Thank you. And this is just about me. Just my key role is to always go down the road of natural as much as we can, and also just to let you know that I'm working in a health store where we really only stock plant-based supplements. So there's no binders or fillers in them, and it's all about the purity really, and getting back to basics and knowing that the soil has such a huge impact. Even there's freeze-dried supplements out there, so it is essentially food just in a capsule. If anybody has any queries about that, you can be in touch with me. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So it's really all about nurturing the soil, and if we nurture the soil, that will nurture us. So I know some of you might have questions now, so can I take a few questions? No questions from the audience? Yep, one here. From our farmer here, or a gardener here at the front, thank you.
Or
Gardener, yeah, gardener.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting event and very nice panel. My question is about variety of grasses and that selection process you talked about. And FBA is doing that research. And are we going to see a monoculture type of thing as a suggestion of resilience and sustainability? Because if we are selecting this grass is better than this one, then we're just are doing the same thing what we're doing now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There needs to be a change to the testing systems to look at single varieties under reduced inputs, but also look at performance of mixes as well. And there's a real gap in knowledge of, for example, components of more diverse grasslands. There's really very little breeding effort into those, and there's actually a real need to do that and to look at their performance regionally as well. So there is a place for continuing looking at the performance of monocultures as well, because that's how you isolate their performance, but then going forward into mixtures. But how you test them needs to change so that you're looking at lower input systems, and also potentially doing testing under controlled environments. So you're looking forward to, where the climate's going to be warmer, wetter, for example, because breeding new crops takes years and years and years, so you need to be ahead of the game in terms of the testing processes as well. Does that answer your question?
Cal,
Yes, it does, but it goes back to the same place, because diversity is the answer that we know. Still, if we are breeding the same way, we are avoiding diversity. So how are we addressing plants growing together? Is it not better to choose plants 10 plants that grow together better than one grass type that performs.
So
the
that's
same
why you
functions.
need to do, the mixes as well and look to see where the best combination is. But you do need to have continued breeding because of the changing climate. So when you're testing varieties, you're testing them in the current climate, but we need to think about how do we test them going forward in future climates. And I do agree that having a biodiverse sward is the best way to improve soil health potentially, but with reduced inputs because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, you agree?
I agree. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and not everyone that's farming is at this event. You know what I'm saying? So there are a lot of people that will still be monoculture pasture grazers. So even if that might not be the gold standard, we can still improve in that area. So it might be important to continue to research that. So
It was wonderful to see in your slides, Brid, some of the sort of natural varieties of things that you see growing, like the mallow and the trefoil, and
And I don't know. I used to hear my granny talking about the butter that came from a field. That's something you don't hear now. I don't know. The flavour that was there from a certain field, and that would have been down to all those varieties growing. It'd be great to be able to get back to that. And again, I think this is a huge opportunity for Ireland to north and south as an island to be able to produce this, much better flavoured food, because other countries have gone so far down the monoculture route, and there are great countries there. If you go to somewhere like Romania, and the amount of varieties growing in the field, that's. But still, we've got that opportunity here as well. Yeah. So I think we should take it.
Okay. Question? Yeah.
In relation to the last question that was asked, the answer to that was given was effectively, look, we need to go back and do the siloed research we did previously, which effectively gave us perennial ryegrass, and you put loads of nitrogen on it. You will grow more loads of plant material, but if you don't do it in a holistic way, the result is meaningless. We've effectively proved that with the agricultural research we have done over the last number of years. The complexity of the microbiodiversity poses huge problems for research, because it becomes the outcomes become more variable. If you have 10, 15, 20 species of plants in a mix, it's how they all interact. And it was mentioned that, and I've heard my grandmother being able to identify meat by from the taste of where it came. And are we putting enough emphasis on that taste and flavoursome as a quality of the product? Is there a real research link there? And I suppose the ultimate big question in grassland is what are the mixes working together that will be ideal to give us both production and these positive environmental outcomes.
Can do, yeah. So I agree, and I think evaluation for performance and performance in terms of productivity of the sward, but also performance in meat quality needs to be done. It comes down to finances. It's very expensive testing systems, but ultimately what we are hoping to try and pilot in AFBI in the next couple of years is actually a testing system for commercial mixes that does, provide some kind of evaluation of how they perform and maybe as a feed, yeah.
Any learnings from America that you want to share, or
Sorry?
Can you share any learnings?
In terms of nutrient density as in the meat and the milk when on a diverse diet, yeah. So Brid, you mentioned Dr. Stefan Van Vliet. We work with him quite often, and again, Fred Provenza's book Nourishment can't be encouraged enough, because their research shows direct correlations in nutrient density in meat and milk from, in the U.S., we unfortunately, all meat isn't grass-fed or all cattle, so they did grain-finished meat versus monoculture pasture meat versus diverse pasture meat, rotated, and they found a direct, almost one-to-one correlation increase in nutrient density as you moved from each of those 3 sections. And specifically, one area that they looked at was omega-6 to omega-3 fat ratios that Brid's mentioned before. And again, those omega-6s, those bring about inflammation. We need those in our body. They get a bad rap, but we do need omega-6s in our body. So if we get a cut, there's a good inflammation process that happens. Omega-6s start that process. But the problem is our meat has such a high ratio of omega-6s in our, say, corn-finished meat, that we have this chronic low level of inflammation at all times, and that's deteriorating our soils and our health. So when we can increase that omega-6 to 3 ratios with diverse pasture grazing, which is what Stefan Van Vliet has directly showed, we're going to have healthier animals, healthier people, and that is something that will continue to be studied in the future, and it won't be just niche research. It's going to be cornerstone of nutritional data moving forward, for sure.
So we need to listen to this book. This is the one that's on. It's actually...
The Audible, yeah,
it's on Audible.
Yes, yeah,
Great.
that's yeah. But the beef nutrient density, that's continuous research, and I think people can submit their beef for testing. And again, if you're producing nutrient dense beef with high omega 3s compared with omega 6s, I think that is an opportunity, a sales opportunity, a huge marketing opportunity, because health outcomes are very important. And so I think we'll be all able to send our samples for testing, or maybe that's testing is available now. So it'd be great.
And while we're on the subject of books, there's an amazing book that just came out called What Your Food Ate. So it's kind of a play on words, like you are what you eat, but actually you are what your food ate. And so David Montgomery and Ann Beakley go through this whole panel discussion on soil health to gut health. That's another book that I really, really recommend you guys dig into. So.
Not an Audible, though?
Maybe. I don't know yet.
I like the sound of Audible. I could listen to that in the car. Any other questions?
That's great.
Yeah, one at the back, please. Yep.
Sorry, where can you send your meat or your pork, or can you send eggs even as well that you've tested?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was the University in Utah, and I know they've had samples submitted from the UK. So it's you'd have to Google the beef density nutrient program, I think, and you can find it that way.
Locally, I potentially get in touch with Lockery College, and they might be able to direct you as where to go for that.
Yeah, part of my job has been not testing nutrition, but actually doing food judging, which I have to say is fantastic at times and terrible at other times because you have to taste everything. But it's fascinating how much, if you even just like tasting one category, like say lamb, fascinating to see the variety of taste within that. Any questions on nutrition? On here.
Thanks for a great talk. Bioavailability of nutrients, is there anybody testing that? Because it makes sense to me that something that's grown on a multi-species sward with rich soil microbe would have much more available nutrition for us to absorb, especially for people who are ill or dealing with inflammation.
Sorry, can I answer that one? I know that is being done as part of this program. They're actually following the nutrients from the soil to what's it called? Metabolonics? Was that what it's called?
Metabolomics.
Metabolomics.
Where is that? Or part of this program?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as part of the beef nutrient density program. Yeah. So.
I suppose then that follows up on the study we done with carrots in Loughry College, and they were very, very helpful and gave us a whole breakdown of the results and was very rapid turnaround. And that was with quite a good sample as well. So even get in touch with them, you know, as well, so they'll be able to help.
Any more questions before we finish? Yeah, one at the back, please.
I just wanted to ask a question on A2 milk. Have there been any studies done here in the UK in comparison to what it is in Australia?
Oh, any studies on milk that we're aware of?
A2 milk is for lactose intolerant people?
I have not.
Have you agreed?
No.
That's I was going to say, some of our colleagues, they're dairymen up in the northern part of America, Wisconsin. That's our dairy part. And in talking to them, they have told me the process of pasteurization that goes from, you know, cow's udder to the carton, and they are firmly convinced that that milk is so tampered and so changed that's the reason why a lot of people can't handle that milk anymore and why they're lactose intolerant, because the denaturing, the heating, the things that they add, even the foot baths that these dairy cows are walking in, and it gets in the end product, it's denaturing those milk proteins so much that it becomes a form that our body it's actually foreign to us. And so that's, in their mind, what a lot of that lactose intolerance is. That's the root cause. Now, as to lactose-free milk, I'm not sure. Sorry.
Just to add on that, I would do a lot of food intolerance testing, and dairy is a very big result for a lot of people. Now, everyone's gut bacteria are so different, but certainly I would say 60 to 70% everyone is nearly dairy intolerant. And there is a big,
How many?
at least 60 to 70% of what I'm
60?
seeing.
60 to 70?
Yeah. It's huge. It's so common. But it's probably, as we've all talked about, our eating habits have changed, and not only the soil, but the way that we're eating and the lifestyle. So that's an area, because it's a holistic approach that I would personally do. There's so many different factors. It's scary, though.
It's quite shocking. Okay, one more question at the back there. Yep.
Just on that there, the likes of the false advertisements sometimes in shops, say like for when you go to look at block butter, and then you look through the ingredients, instead of just being, you know, pure butter, it's got rapeseed oil, which rapeseed oil is a big factor, and even like Greek yogurt, even though it says Greek style, that's not actually proper. You have to watch all the labelling is a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're getting into nearly the region of ultra-processed, are we? But, yeah. Do you want to answer?
I'll just briefly say, yeah, those seed oils, they are high in those omega-6. So in any product with a lot of those seed oils, you are going to get more inflammation, absolutely. And tying into the flavor aspect, so speaking about evolution, flavor is actually an indicator of nutrient density. So when we're talking about our grandmothers can tell the difference between lamb and good butter, right? Those phytonutrients, those health-promoting compounds, there's a reason why that food tastes better. It's because we've developed to register that as good for us. So, it tastes good, I need to eat more. So, I mean, that's one reason why I think little kids don't want to eat vegetables as much anymore, because they don't taste good, because they've been grown with high fertility, they're filled with nothing, they grow too fast before they can get a complete cache of nutrients like the older varieties used to have, and now they just taste like bland. So yeah, I totally agree. And now we have to fill them like the butter with a seed oil just to get a product out there that won't go rancid.
I just want to mention, a couple of years ago there was on my online forums there was a crisis in Canada where all the bakers found that their cakes weren't working out, and it turned out that the dairy industry in Canada had changed the feed to I can't remember what it was, but it was it didn't suit the bakers anyway.
Okay. Any final questions or? I think that's been. Oh yeah, one last one. This is the last one. Promise.
So I'm a market gardener producing food, growing lots of vegetables without any chemicals or anything like that. Just wondering if you've got any advice on how I can sort of promote these vegetables to my customers, through social media and things like that. Like, some of this research is really interesting. Do you have any sort of further reading suggestions, etc.?
So is the question then how you can promote your product from your own particular?
It's probably two different questions, but the first would be what's the best way to sort of engage members of the public who might not know as much about these subjects, and the second is just sort of, do you have any further reading suggestions which would sort of help me find more facts and things like that?
Okay, thank you.
Is that for me? Yeah. Well, basically, I think the most important thing for selling is if you're selling direct. Are you selling direct? Yeah. I think people have a fear of their vegetables, or what to do with them, or destroying them, or forgetting about them in the fridge. So I think education is the best. To give tastings, to give suggestions of how they can be used, and I think particularly I'm kind of thinking of. People in small families, I suppose, is because I know I'm a mother of 5, and I know when I was feeding my children, I had to look for cheap stuff. I grow it myself, gather it wild, or buy cheap. That's the way it was. So I think if you can educate people on how to use it, your market is probably small, couples or single people even, and who don't, a whole cabbage is way too much for them, so why not show them how to ferment it quickly or something like that, and give them ideas so that they could buy a cabbage and then have it there for a month even, so I think I think education is the thing, because people are afraid of trying new things, and they need to be helped.
I would probably just add, make it relatable. Everyone's going through it, the same thing, and maybe different. How you could do different approaches, and I like that, lone people living at home, and even turn it into a fermented product, and then talking about the benefits of that. Like, why would you do that? So you would talk about the gut health as well, linking that in. There's even if you typed into one of the research ones that I would use, it would be PubMed. It's quite easy to follow and understand, and even Google Scholar is quite good, and you would just type in those keywords, and then you'd filter the dates, so then you'll get some really recent research as well.
But there's kind of advice at the minute that we should try and eat 30 different plants a week, isn't there?
Yeah.
There are over 400 varieties of plants, and they're finding thousands every year. But there are currently, I think, 34,000 registered varieties of edible plants, and we eat probably 30 at a max. I'm talking about the Western civilization, or maybe globalize it. Yeah, we eat very, very few varieties. So we need to get back to a lot of those older or other varieties.
I suppose my major concern about that is accessibility to everyone. A lot of people couldn't afford to, buy that range of diverse foods.
I know, but foraging is great, actually.
You live in a city?
Even in a city, yeah. There are places to forage in the city, and lots of people giving workshops and things like that. Yeah, so to get a variety, and you don't even need a lot. I think that's the way animals, they just nibble at a very small amount. So that's why I'm kind of a little bit opposed to the multi-swords that have huge amounts of plantain in it, where I don't think the animals actually eat that much of it. They'll eat the clover all right, but they turn up their nose at all the plantain that would be in a multi-species planted sward, where they would nibble a little bit. So that's all we need is a tiny little nibble, walk through, a few bits of trees and things like that. That's what we need, and that's what the animals need too.
As a nutritionist, I would then say make sure you could add more herbs into your daily diet rather than relying on salt for flavour. Of course, you need an element of that too, but that's a whole story for another day. But herbs and spices are a great way of getting more nutrients in as well, and it also helps with absorption too.
The last piece of advice I would give is grow really, really tasty vegetables. So, and your business is going to grow by word of mouth if you have the tastiest peppers, the tastiest tomatoes. And the only way to do that is to improve the soil microbiology. They're going to shuttle those nutrients. They're going to cause these phytonutrients to aggregate in those fruits. And then you're going to have really tasty food, and you're going to have happy customers.
And it always kind of annoys me that in food judging, it doesn't actually cover vegetables. So you'll judge meat, cheese, milks, everything, but you don't tend to. We need to change that. Yeah, we need to change that. Okay, can I just thank the panel for sharing their experience and their insights, which I think have been really beneficial, and thank the audience as well for listening and asking some great questions. So I think now it's all over and it's time to relax and enjoy the festivities. Thank you very much.